إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون صدق الله العظيم أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah, our Creator, our Sustainer, the one we owe our very existence to. We praise Him, we seek His help for everything that we do in this life, and we ask His forgiveness for all the mistakes that we've made and we know we're going to make throughout the rest of our lives. As Muslims, we declare that nobody deserves to be worshipped except the one and only true God. God with the capital G, Allah. And we declare that Muhammad was the last and final messenger that was sent for our guidance and for the guidance of all humanity until the end of time. Respected brothers, sisters, and guests, if we look at the state of Muslims in the West or in the UK or in our society that we live in today, what we find is that it's radically different from what it was 10 years ago or from what it was 20 years ago. And one of the main differences that we see, one of the differences that affects us as Muslims on a daily basis, it affects us, it affects our families, it affects our wives, it affects our husbands, it affects our children, is that this rise in this hatred and fear and suspicion of Islam and Muslims has an effect on us. Whether we like it or not, whether our iman is strong or not, it affects us in some way because that's the reality of the world and that's the reality of who we are as human beings. There's an increase of bullying in schools for children just because they're Muslim. There's an increase of suspicion for scholars and just regular people who are just traveling and getting stopped at airports and getting asked several questions and people are looking at them. The media covers Islam in usually a light which is somewhat suspicious, casting questions about Muslims and their faith and their dedication to the country and what does Islam really stand for. And then there's surveillance, increased surveillance of Muslims in particular. And with all of this, the average Muslim is going to be in a state of uncertainty, not knowing when the situation is going to get a little bit better, especially those who've been through something, some episode, some incident or something like that. Someone has made fun of you or someone has done something to you. And with that fear, with that suspicion, comes a level of uncertainty for Muslims, thinking, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And whenever we're in that state of confusion, whenever we're in a state of wondering, when is the situation going to change and how should I deal with this and how should I process this, we have two tools that we always go back to as Muslims. We have the Qur'an and we have the Sunnah. And when we go back to the Qur'an and we don't know what to think, we don't know what our reaction should be every single time some incident happens in the world and then it's somehow blamed on Muslims or blamed on the religion of Islam, we go back and we look at how the Qur'an was revealed. The Qur'an was not revealed in one shot, not in one instance. The Qur'an was revealed gradually over a period of 23 years. And during that time, there were complaints coming to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, why you keep getting revelation? Why is it just keeps on happening? Every few weeks, you're getting another revelation, 5 verses, 10 verses, whatever it is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down a verse and other verses responding to this accusation, responding to this complaint. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ. He says that the people who disbelieve, they say, why isn't this Qur'an sent down in one shot, just in one revelation? Why do you keep on getting revelation? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarified the reason, the wisdom behind it. He said, كَذَلِكَ لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. So that we might strengthen your heart, Make your heart firm through these revelations that keep coming. See, that's the point. The revelations kept coming to the Prophet ﷺ to strengthen his heart and to strengthen the heart of the Sahaba, the companions, because it was something that's freshly revealed in order for him to react to the circumstances that he's dealing with. So for example, when the stories of the prophets come down, Prophet Nuh, alayhi salam, Prophet Noah, the challenges that he went through, his people are not listening to him. Went down to Prophet Ibrahim, whose own father is not following him and kicking him out because he doesn't want to worship idols. All of these challenges that the prophets went through are being revealed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And they're there for us in the Qur'an to read. And we're supposed to be getting some wisdom from them. We're supposed to be getting some reassurance from them so that our hearts can become at ease. Our hearts can be at peace as well. So let us take a look at some of those verses which help our hearts to be at ease in the situations or the tests and the trials that we're going through today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the battle of Uhud in the Qur'an. The battle of Uhud was the second battle that was fought after the migration from Mecca to Medina. Battle of Badr was successful. The battle of Uhud resulted in a defeat. The Muslims lost. Several of the companions were killed, and even Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, was killed. Some of the greatest people that ever lived, they were killed. And what happened? Muslims became demoralized. They became in a state where they're saying, how could this happen? We thought we were on the truth. We thought we're on the right path, and now we're being defeated. And of course, there was their own mistake, and the archers left and all of that. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about, right after He talks about the reason why the Muslims lost the battle of Uhud, and why they got into the state that they got into, and why they're going through challenges and difficulties? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of that story, He says in the Qur'an, وَلَا تَهِنُوا, don't become weak, وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, and don't be sad, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ, and you will be victorious, you will be successful, إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ, if you are true believers. Just look at that, reflect upon that. This is being revealed right after the defeat of the battle of Uhud, and the Muslims are thinking, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to us. We've been defeated, we lost some of our leaders. And Allah is saying, first of all, don't go into the state of weakness. Don't go into a defeatist mentality thinking we're weak and we don't have power and we cannot do anything and everyone is more powerful than us. He says, don't do that. وَلَا تَهِنُوا, don't become weak. Wahan, this weakness, don't go into that. And number two, وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, don't go into sadness. Don't go into depression. Don't start thinking, why is this happening to me and all of these things. Don't let yourself get into that state. And He says, you will be victorious if, in the end, ultimately, if you meet that one condition. And that condition is if you're true believers. We have to be true believers. You have to have real faith if you want to get through the challenges and the trials that you're going through. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Qur'an that Muslims will go through challenges. He says that even the prophets went through some of the most difficult challenges of all times. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how every day is not going to be a victory for you. Some days there will be good things happening and some days there will be bad things happening. But what you have to remember is you have to zoom out the camera of your life. You have to zoom out the camera of history, and you have to look at things in a comprehensive perspective. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِيَمْسَسْكُمْ قَرْحٌ فَقَدْ مَسَّ الْقَوْمَ قَرْحٌ مِثْلُ. He says that if a group of people have harmed you, they've afflicted you with a blow, with some kind of harm, then remember that they themselves have been afflicted by some harm as well in the past. And then Allah says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. These are the days which we call to alternate for people. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you're in a good state, everything's easy, everything's going well, and sometimes you're going to be in a challenging state. You're going to go through some challenges. You're going to go through some trials. It's not going to be easy. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, why? Why does He do this? What is the purpose behind this? That you don't always have it easy. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, so that He might know those who truly believe. وَيَتَّخِذَ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ, and He might be able to take martyrs from amongst you, to make you among the highest level. Even people who die, right? From a purely materialistic perspective, if somebody dies, for a good cause or a bad, or let's say for a good cause, even from the materialistic perspective, this is the worst thing that ever happened to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inverting that model. He's flipping that model and saying, no, that's not the worst thing. That's a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He wanted to elevate this person. And then He says, Wallahu la yuhibbul zalimeen. And Allah does not love the tyrannical people, the unjust people. Meaning He's not just going to let these people get away with it. He's alternating days, but in the end, He's going to take the people who are unjust to account. So when we zoom out the camera and we look at our history, we look at what we've been through. Alhamdulillah, Islamic history is amazing. It's beautiful. If you look at the civilizational accomplishments, the achievements, scientific, educational, political, all of the things that have happened, there's been a lot of success and victory for Islam in the greater scheme of things. And there's been challenges throughout the way. And for us, in our own small little way, these are the challenges that we're dealing with. And in a larger scale, when we see Muslims being oppressed in different parts of the world, these are the challenges that we're dealing with. But you always have to remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا. These are the days which we're going to cause to alternate. Some days is going to be victorious. Days meaning periods of time. Every day is different. Every day is going to be something different. So what we need to remember as individuals, on an individual level, we need to remember that there's some wisdom behind what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, and we need to understand what our response should be. What should our reaction be? Take another example from the Qur'an. Aisha radiallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her, wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One day, a group of people or some people started a rumor about her. They accused her of sleeping with another man, because she was left behind in a caravan, and all of a sudden that man came and people started spreading rumors. She cheated on the Prophet ﷺ, and they said this about her, and they made this lie about her. Slander. And imagine how bad this is. Imagine if this happened in your family. Someone slandered your sister, someone slandered your wife, your mom, something like that. It's horrible. This is a horrible incident. And what happened is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that incident in the Qur'an. And what does He say? He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ جَاءُوا بِالْإِفْكِ عُصْبَةٌ مِّنْكُمْ. That those who came with this slander, with this lie, they are a group from amongst you. What does that mean, amongst you? Meaning there's some of the Muslims, not even the hypocrites, some of the Muslims even fell into this, because when you start gossiping, you start backbiting, you start talking about other people, you want to add a little spice on the story, and you kind of get involved in it, and you start to spread that story as well. You don't fact check. You don't verify. And we need to be careful about that. We need to be very careful about that. The Prophet ﷺ warned us about that. He said that anyone who starts spreading rumors, كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَذِبًا أَن يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. It's sufficient to label someone a liar if they narrate and spread everything that they hear. Every message you get, everything you hear, you just go and start telling other people without fact-checking it. This becomes a big problem even on social media. If you have WhatsApp, people forward all these videos over and stuff like that. Some of these videos they're nonsense. They're not real at all. They're made up. People send these chain mails that are going around the world, and they come back to you like 10 years later. Some of these are absolutely fake. We need to be very careful, a little bit more critical before we send it to someone, because we can give them some wrong information. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about this incident and saying that some of you, even among the companions who were sincere, they started kind of getting into this, spreading this gossip, whether they intended or they didn't intend it. And then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He says something very significant. He says, do not consider that this is something that is bad for you. Don't consider it something bad for you. It's actually something that's good for you. بَلْ هُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. It's good for you. So I say, wait a minute. How can something like this be good for the Muslim community? This is the worst thing that could possibly happen. You have slander taking place against the mother of the believers, Aisha radiallahu anha. And people are spreading it around, and most of them are hypocrites that are, causing this. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, no, there's actually some good in it. And then He goes on to explain in the Qur'an why there's good in it. What is the good in this thing? The good in this thing is that it begins to differentiate between people, it teaches people lessons. It differentiates between people who understand what they're saying and don't understand. It reveals people who have some sickness and illness in their hearts. And then it brings to light certain characteristics that people need to work on in their society and in their community. So that is very significant. That's very important to keep in mind. So what we learn is that whenever we're talking about something that we're facing as a challenge in our own lives or in the Muslim community, we have to remember a few things. The first thing we have to remember is that the immense wisdom behind the test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends our way is that there's a certain wisdom that we find. So the first wisdom I want to talk about is the idea of us finding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we go through tribulation. I want you to think about that. Many of us, we all know as Muslims, we want to get closer to Allah. We want to be better Muslims. But there's no, magic pill that you can take. You can't go to the imam and, say, give me, 2 pills. I can just pop it in, the taqwa pill. And you take it and you're good to go, mashallah. I feel good. I'm going to have khushu and concentrate in my salah. It doesn't work that way. And one of the ways that people get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through tribulations, through tests that they're going through. Because what do? Imagine the type of dua that you make to Allah. Your daily dua that you make after salah, after prayer, and then the dua when you're going through something really, really challenging. A friend of mine, he called me just yesterday, and he said he's going through some testing right now, and he might be diagnosed for some type of genetic disorder. It's a very serious thing, and I'm telling you, this brother was not very practicing or anything like that, but now his du'as are 100% full of sincerity. You could just sense it in his voice and his tone. Not only is he scared, but he really has no one else to turn to except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see a change in him all of a sudden, this last week or 2 weeks that he found out about this. And this is not hypocrisy. This is not hypocrisy that all of a sudden you start getting closer to Allah because you're going through a challenge or a difficulty. It's something that helps you get to where you need to get going in the first place. This is what happens, a student starts failing in school, right? Someone's in school, they're not doing well in school, they start doing bad. What do? Send them to the counselor's office. The counselor goes, hey, what are you doing with your life? Come on, kid, you need to get yourself back up. You need to graduate from school. You don't want to be a failure. Gives him a little pep talk, and that kind of motivates him. He had to go through that process to kind of realize that, hey, I'm kind of hitting bottom now. I need to do something about my life. I need to change something. Same thing when it comes to work, right? If there's an employee at work, they're underperforming, they're not doing their job, they're on the phone too much, they're slacking off. What happens? The boss will come in, give him a pep talk, give him a threat as well. You know what? This is the last warning. You're fired. If this happens again, if I see you sleeping on the job or you're chatting on the job or something, you're gone. What's going to happen? All of a sudden, that person starts becoming a better employee now, if they want to. They change. So that trial, that test, that reminder, it's like a wake-up call. It's like a giant alarm clock going off for people who've been sleeping and they've not really been paying attention. And that's one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us in these times. Every single time there's an incident, people are talking about Islam in the media, and you go, why is it so bad? Why are they talking about it? Why can't we just be left alone? Left alone for what? So that most people could just be relaxed and comfortable, and they'll start going back to sleep. And they'll just think everything's okay. And I'll just, I'll do my prayers and that's it. Or sometimes I won't even wake up for prayer. This is a lesson for us. This is a wake-up call for us. And we need to understand that. And people change their lives because of these challenges, because of these wake-up calls. In the UK we have, alhamdulillah, Brother Yusuf Islam. Perfect example, formerly Cat Stevens. He talks about his own life. How did he kind of come to Islam? How did he start to change his life? 2 incidents happened. One, he had tuberculosis. And it made him start thinking that, he's been diagnosed with this illness. And he started thinking about his own life. And then the second thing that happened was he almost drowned in the ocean. He was in California, where I'm from. So this happened to him. And for him, he said, I remember listening to an interview, he said, this is the best thing that ever happened in my life. Someone said, what do you mean? Getting tuberculosis is the best thing that ever happened in your life? He said, yeah, because it helped me change. And I'm telling you, that's many people go through that. I went through that myself. I was not a practicing Muslim. I didn't come from a practicing Muslim family. I was in a major car accident. I was racing and, don't ever do that. But I was doing that and I got into a car accident. And I started thinking about life and it brought me closer to Allah, brought me closer to Islam. So this is the thing, we have to understand that these tribulations, these challenges, what do? They're designed to wake us up. So there's an immense wisdom in there. And that's the first wisdom that we see. The second wisdom, when you think about the challenges we're going through, the second wisdom is that it helps unite us. It helps keep the Muslim ummah, the Muslim community, united together. Because sometimes it's very easy to fall into these small divisions between us. This person is, doing something a little bit different. He's not holding his hands the same way that I hold my hands in prayer or something like that. And now all of a sudden we get into this groupthink, into this tribalism, and we don't want to work with each other. And this is something that the Sahaba had to deal with as well. The companions dealt with this. They were from two tribes in Medina. There was the Aus and the Khazraj, and they became the Ansar. Two different tribes in Medina, they become the helpers. And then you have the Muhajirun, they're coming from Mecca, they're the people of Quraysh. They all combine together and they become one Muslim ummah in Medina. Now it doesn't mean that they lost their identity. I want you to understand that. Some people, they think that you lose your identity. You cannot eat your cultural food anymore. If you're going to eat, spicy food, or you're going to eat more fish than other people, or whatever it is, you don't have to give up all of that. You can still dress according to your cultural standard. You can still use your own language. You can use all of these things, but you should not have these barriers that are put between you and someone else because of your culture, especially when it comes to your Muslim brother or Muslim sister. And this is a lesson. This lesson for us is we have these political difficulties. We have these challenges. We have Islamophobia rising up. They're targeting every single person that's Muslim. They don't care if you're from Bangladesh, or you're from Pakistan, or you're from India, or you're from Afghanistan, or you're from Syria, or you're from Palestine, or you're from Indonesia. It doesn't matter what country you come from. You're a Muslim, then we're going to go ahead and treat you as a suspect. So if the enemies of Islam are united in one cause, that should also make us reflect and say, well, why would we be divided? Why should we divide ourselves when we're supposed to be united as a community? So we should really practice that. We should think about this idea. And one of the ways to here's the action item for you. One of the ways to implement this idea is if you're one of those people who's fallen into the trap of only saying salam, salam alaikum. If you're only saying salam to the people that you know, you walk into a social gathering, or you walk outside of the masjid right after this thing, and there's 10 people around, and you'll just go up and you'll only say salam to the people you know, or the people from your own tribe, or the people from your own culture. You need to make that adjustment. Say salam to everyone. If they have a chance, right? I know there's so many people, you cannot say salam to all of them. But if you walk into a social gathering, if you walk into a walima or a wedding or something like that, greet everyone to show that love and that brotherhood, not just the people whom you're closest to, not just your own family or your own tribe or your own people. And we need to have that understanding. You may feel more comfortable with people who speak your own language. You may feel more comfortable with people who eat your own type of food. That's normal. That's totally natural. And you don't have to give that up. But you need to make sure you don't erect any barriers that are going to prevent us being an actual community. So that's a second lesson that we learn from these challenges that we're going through. The third challenge, or the third thing that we learn, is that these circumstances expose the hypocrites amongst us. And hopefully, inshallah, there's very few of them. We hope. But there were hypocrites in the city of Medina. And the reality is that there are opportunists in our community as well. There are people who are simply waiting for an opportunity to get some type of position and sell out their own brother, sell out their own sister for some financial gain or for some political gain. And these are the type of people who are going to the media, they're going to, these politicians, and they're telling them, oh, the masjids, they're, dangerous places, and they're breeding grounds for extremism and radicalism and all of that stuff. There are people like that. And what ends up happening is these challenges and these tests, they expose those people. And it's actually a good thing to expose them. The reason why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings them out, because they're actually more dangerous when they're hiding within the community. And when they come out and they start saying their views openly, it becomes very clear who's actually in favor and supporting the Muslim community and who does not have the community's best interests in their heart and in their mind. And that's very important. So there are some people who they can only criticize Muslims. The only thing they can see they see injustice all around them. They see wars, they see, so many bad things happening, but they can only criticize Muslims. So you find, for example, they walk into some social gathering or something like that, some party or whatever. Everybody shows up late. Muslim, Jew, Christian, atheist, agnostic, everybody shows up late. They'll look at these Muslims, showing up late. All they can do is criticize. Everyone parks wrong. Let's say everyone parks illegally. Everyone is double parked at an event. Why? Look at the Muslims. They're double parking. Everyone double parked, let's just say, right? Muslims shouldn't be doing it anyways. But what they can do is they can only see the criticism in the Muslims specifically. The Muslims are late, or the Muslims are doing this. They don't come on time. And yet, this is a common problem. This is not a Muslim problem. It's a human problem. And when people see a human problem and they think that it's a Muslim problem, there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong in their heart. And if they're from among the Muslim community, then these are people who, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal their hearts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect them. So to recap, we're going through challenges. We're facing certain challenges. And we have to remember that in every single test that we go through, whether it's on an individual level, in your family, in your own personal life, you lost your job, not doing good in school, whatever happened, or it's a challenge that you're going through as a community, as a Muslim community, we have to remember that there is a wisdom behind why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you these challenges. And one of the wisdoms is for you to wake up and come back to Islam. Wake up and return back to your Lord and think about your own life. And the second is for the community to become united and put aside our differences and be stronger. And the third is to expose some of those people who are not sincere and are not our well-wishers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us at all times and in all things we do. Ameen. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa lisa'ilil muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So alhamdulillah, we've talked today about the challenges, the tests that we go through. And I'll just conclude with one reminder of a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that we can apply in our lives. He said, this authentic hadith, he said, نِعْمَتَانِ مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِّنَ النَّاسِ. There are two blessings which people have that most people, they're cheated out of. Two blessings, most people are cheated out of these blessings. He said, as-sihhatu wal-faragh. Number one is good health, sihha. The fact that you can actually walk around, you can function, you can move. If you can jog a little bit and you can move around and you can breathe easily without machines tied to you and putting medicine in your mouth, this is a blessing from Allah. This health is a blessing. And the second is faragh. Faragh means free time. Free time means that you're not occupied in working what's necessary to support your family and support yourself. And you're not occupied in the absolute necessary things for your life and for your akhirah. All the extra time you have, it's faragh, meaning it's free time. You have the ability to do whatever you want. And what many people do, the Prophet ﷺ is kathirun minan nas. He said, most people, they're cheated out of this. The word he used was maghboon. Maghboon means, ghaban is a type of cheating in economics. He said people are cheated out of this. But the question is, who is cheating them? It's themselves. So only who cheats them out of utilizing these two things? It's themselves. So we have to make sure, as I'm reminding myself, I'm speaking to myself first and foremost, is that the health that we have, alhamdulillah, Allah has given us the ability. Allah has given us the ability to move, to breathe, to walk. We don't have major illnesses. We're not lying in a bed. And Allah has given us a relative amount of free time. Even if you work 2 jobs, you still have some hours in the week. You have the ability to do good during that time, or you have the ability to waste it. Like some people say, I have some time to kill. Let's go kill some time. Time is your life, as the scholars say. If you're killing time, you're killing your life. Which comes back to the health part. So think about how you can utilize these two blessings in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing something that's for your own good and for the good of your community. This is what we should always be in our minds, because this is something that we make a mistake. Every day we need to renew this intention and think, how can I utilize these two things from my own self? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us. Oh Allah, forgive us for our sins. Oh Allah, purify our hearts. Oh Allah, help us see the tests that you send our way, and let us see the wisdom and what our response is supposed to be during those tests. Oh Allah, help us and guide us at all times and in all things we do. Oh Allah, help this community and our society to see the true message of Islam for what it really is, and open their hearts and minds to see Islam for what it really is. Oh Allah, show us the truth as truth and help us to follow it, and show us the false as false and keep us away from it. Oh Allah, help those people who are going through difficulties, those who are suffering in all different parts of the world. Oh Allah, make it easy for them. Oh Allah, grant them firmness and patience in the challenges they're going through, and reward them for each and every single difficulty they go through. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa qimus salam.